What is up, Star Wars fans? This is Darth Watson. In this video, we have some very exciting news regarding George Lucas's involvement of The Mandalorian and Grogu. And this is coming from Star Wars Newsnet. And as I was reading it earlier, it sounds like Jon Favreau was asking George Lucas permission on something. And we're going to get into that here in a little bit. But before we get on to topic, we're going to be talking about the Lucas Art Museum that's going to be opening up pretty soon in Los Angeles, California. And I'm probably going to go to that museum at some point. But the Lucas Museum is going to be opening up pretty soon, and it's about the history of George Lucas and filmmaking and cinematography. And it's going to be on and it's going to feature Star Wars from the original 6 films, and it's going to feature Star Wars from the TCW that George Lucas has created with Dave Filoni with the first 6 seasons. And then maybe what we might see, we probably won't see season 7 because that came out when Disney has owned Star Wars since when Disney owned Star Wars, so after George Lucas sold Star Wars, so it'll just be at least the 6 seasons, maybe season 7, but the 6 films in TCW is going to be a part in the museum, and it's going to be the history of George Lucas as a filmmaker. It's also going to feature like the American Graffiti and the THX film that George Lucas also worked on, but his museum is going to be opening up pretty soon in LA, and I am looking forward to it. I'm excited. I'm going to explore exactly what it is, and we all know that the only Star Wars is going to be in there is going to be the 6 films and TCW and the history of the production of all that, and really because that's the only Star Wars that mattered to George Lucas. The only Star Wars that mattered to George Lucas was the 6 films in the Clone Wars series, and the expanded universe and the Disney Star Wars canon, that everything that's canon right now ever since Disney took over Star Wars in 2012, and the expanded universe, that even though there were things that George Lucas liked and disliked about the expanded universe and liked and disliked about the stuff that Disney has put out, such as The Mandalorian or The Last Jedi, like George Lucas has liked some of the stuff that Disney has put out, and he's also liked Rogue One, and he's liked some of the stuff within the expanded universe, and some of the stuff that George Lucas didn't like in the expanded universe. But at the end of the day, the only true Star Wars that mattered to George Lucas is his creation with the 6 films and the TCW that he did with Dave Filoni. That's the only Star Wars that mattered, and George Lucas never really viewed the EU as his canon, nor does he view Disney as his philosophy. His philosophy is the 6 films and the Clone Wars series. But anyways, Jon Favreau, and there's a few articles about Jon Favreau who... and this is the most reliable source it's coming from, so this is definitely looking like it's turning out to be true. And it says here that after a negotiation, George Lucas gave us permission to borrow the model we shot to motion control elements of it. It is the move and will go quickly unless somebody points it out. You won't notice it, and but there are two photograph elements from the 1976 model from Star Wars. So basically from the very first Star Wars that they wanted to use for The Mandalorian and Grogu, Jon Favreau was asking permission from George Lucas, and that's pretty much what all of this was saying. So Um, so yeah, George Lucas gave Jon Favreau permission, and that was pretty much George Lucas's involvement. So he wasn't directly like involved with anything like the writing process or anything, but he did give Jon Favreau to do something for the Mandalorian and Grogu, which has something to do with the very original Star Wars from like 1976. So Jon Favreau asked permission, and George Lucas granted it. So that's pretty much what these articles are talking about, and that's George Lucas's involvement. But I'm excited for the Lucas Museum, the LucasArts Museum, and I'm excited to know about George Lucas giving Jon Favreau to do something for the Mandalorian and Grogu, which relates to the 1976 original model from Star Wars. So that's pretty nice to know. And anyways, but that's all I have to say for this video. Do make sure to smash a like, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you all later in another video.